We're all familiar with Venice. The city, known for its canals, bridges, and architecture, has developed a reputation for flooding over time. It has always been prone to flooding, but the frequency and severity of its floods have increased in recent years. To address this issue, the city has spent money on a one-of-a-kind new defense system. Its task is to end this unwanted water problem once and for all, and it will cost billions of dollars and feature some amazing engineering. But things haven't gone exactly as planned. The scheme has been marred by corruption, environmental opposition, and questions about its long-term effectiveness. Despite being far from more expensive than originally predicted and now decades in the making, in the face of climate change, this is a story that every coastal city should hear and remember as we plan for the future. Venice, being built in the middle of a lagoon, has been subject to a natural phenomenon known as acqua alta since its inception in the 5th century. It's the result of a confluence of weather factors, including a high tide, low atmospheric pressure, and strong winds blowing in from the Adriatic Sea. Flooding is the result, and while it has been a part of life here for centuries, it is now becoming an existential threat. What used to happen only a few times a year began happening more than 60 times a year by the end of the last decade, and 2019 saw the worst flood in over 50 years, with 80% of the city submerged. This is where the nearly US $7 billion flood blockade comes into play. The MOST system is made up of 78 gates, each 20 meters wide, that rise up out of the water when flooding is imminent. These pop-up areas can be found at 3 different locations along the coastal cordon that separates the lagoon from the Adriatic. The 2 lower inlets, Malamocco and Chioggia, each have 1 barrier, while Lido in the north has 2, with a new artificial island filling the gap between them. When not in use, the gates are filled with water and submerged in massive reinforced concrete housings, allowing boats to pass above. Compressed air is blown into the gates to raise them, and this forces the water out and causes the massive 42-ton hinges to rotate, eventually breaching the surface. When they are devoid of water, they form a barrier high enough to prevent even the highest tidal waters from passing through. They can withstand a 3-meter high tide and are designed to remain effective even if sea levels rise by up to 60 centimeters in the future. When the tide goes out, the gates are refilled and flipped back to their closed position. They can be raised in about half an hour and lowered in about 15 minutes. Because each barrier has multiple gates that can be controlled independently, the entire system is adaptable depending on the size of the tide and other factors. These massive structures, which are the size of apartment buildings and weigh thousands of tons each, had to be built in 3 separate locations before being dropped into massive trenches on the seafloor. At each of the 4 barriers, there are 2 shoulder caissons that connect the housings to the mainland. It's a clever flood defense system that could make a difference in the future around New York City, on San Francisco Bay, or in Sydney Harbor. But before these cities jump on board, it's critical to ask a fundamental question. Does the system in Venice actually work? The good news is that it has passed its first major tests. More successfully, it protected the city from a 1.3 meter high tide in October of 2020, and it has done so numerous times since. However, this does not mean that flooding has been completely eliminated. It was unable to prevent an unexpectedly high tide from sweeping in and drenching the city once more in December. However, this was not the system's fault. Because weather forecasts underestimated how high the water would be, authorities didn't think to turn it on, and it was far from the project's first blunder. Hundreds of officials, including the mayor, were arrested in a corruption scandal in 2014, with millions of euros in bribes thought to have changed hands as part of the scheme. Its final cost is now around $5 billion USD higher than predicted, and that doesn't include the estimated $120 million required each year to maintain the system. Opponents have expressed concern about MOST's impact on the lagoon's ecological systems, claiming that holding back water in this manner could result in a depleted oxygen level. This would worsen as the barriers were used more frequently, and it is likely that they will be seen more frequently as sea levels continue to rise. Others have questioned whether it will be able to withstand the high water levels expected later this century. The length of time it took has also been heavily criticized. Although the system is new, it was designed in the 80s, when attitudes toward climate change were less serious than now. Many also question whether it is as effective as much older and less expensive defenses such as London's Thames Barrier or Rotterdam's system. Whether the pessimists are proven correct or not, this is what the people of Venice are putting their faith in for the foreseeable future. And it will be a huge relief for many. It will not be the perfect solution, but the important thing is, it works, at least for the time being, and serves as a powerful case study for other cities facing rising sea levels to look to. So guys, that was it for today's video. What do you think about our video? Let us know in the comment section below. If you're new to our channel, be sure to subscribe and ring that notification bell so that you never miss a video. Thanks for watching.